They said Rome never slept, but on certain nights it held its breath. When the sun fell behind the 7 hills and the torches were lit along the marble corridors of the Forbidden Palace, even the loudest city in the world learned how to whisper. Servants moved softer. Guards avoided eye contact. Senators pretended not to hear what echoed beyond walls thick with secrets. Everyone knew something happened there after dark. No one dared to name it. The palace stood apart from the rest of Rome, not because of distance, but because of fear. Built high and wide, layered with courtyards and hidden chambers, it was less a home than a maze designed to confuse truth itself. By day, it was a place of law and ceremony. By night, it became something else entirely. The kind of place where power forgot its limits. Emperor Lucius Valerian was a man Rome praised in public and feared in private. His statue showed calm eyes and a gentle smile, carved to suggest wisdom and mercy. His speeches promised stability. His coins bore symbols of peace. Yet those who served closest to him knew the emperor wore different faces depending on the hour. Cassia learned this on her first night inside the palace. She was 19, chosen not for beauty alone, but for silence. Her family had fallen on hard times, and the palace offer had sounded like rescue. A position as a night attendant, they said. Simple duties. High pay. Honor. Her mother wept with pride. Her father bowed to the official who delivered the message. Cassia arrived at dusk, just as the sky turned the color of old wine. She was led through gates that closed behind her with a final sound that echoed longer than it should have. The air inside smelled of oil lamps and stone cooled by centuries. An older woman named Marcia took her robe and spoke in a voice trained to reveal nothing. You will see things, Marcia said softly. You will hear things. You will repeat none of them. Cassia nodded. She did not yet understand that this was not advice. It was survival. As darkness settled, the palace changed. Musicians were dismissed. Public halls emptied. What remained were narrow corridors, guarded doors, and rooms whose purpose was never discussed. Cassia followed Marcia past a bronze gate etched with symbols of gods who judged and punished. Beyond it lay the emperor's private wing. From behind one door came laughter that sounded forced. From another, silence so heavy it felt alive. Cassia's duties were small at first. Carrying water. Replacing lamps. Standing still for long stretches of time. She noticed how certain servants disappeared for hours and returned pale, their eyes unfocused. She noticed how others never returned at all, their names quietly removed from rosters as if they had never existed. Near midnight, the emperor emerged. He wore no crown then, only a dark robe. Without the symbols of office, he seemed smaller, yet somehow more dangerous. His presence bent the air. Conversations died. Guards straightened. Cassia lowered her eyes, but not before she saw him studying the servants like pieces on a board. New, he said, stopping in front of her. Marcia answered for her. Yes, Caesar. The emperor smiled. Rome always sends me its quietest children. His words were gentle. His gaze was not. That night, Cassia was ordered to stand outside a sealed chamber. From within came voices she did not recognize. Senators, perhaps. Or guests from distant provinces. There was wine, she could smell it. And something sharper beneath, like fear disguised as celebration. Hours passed. At times, the voices rose. At times, they fell into long stretches of silence broken only by a single voice speaking calmly, patiently, as though instructing rather than commanding. Cassia's legs trembled, but she did not move. When the door finally opened, dawn was near. Those who stepped out avoided one another's eyes. One man stumbled, his fine clothes wrinkled as if he had slept in them, though his expression suggested he had not slept at all. The emperor followed last, his robe unwrinkled, his face serene. Clean the room, he said. Inside, Cassia saw overturned cups, wax dripping across the floor, and something else she could not name but felt in her chest like a weight. She cleaned in silence, aware that the walls were listening. Days passed, and nights repeated themselves. Different guests. Different doors. Always the same pattern. Rome outside the palace buzzed with rumors, but none came close to the truth. Senators spoke of loyalty. Poets wrote praises. The people cheered games and bread, never knowing what was traded behind closed doors to keep those gifts flowing. Kasha learned that the Forbidden Palace nights were not about pleasure, as gossip suggested. They were about control. Promises were made and broken. Futures were rewritten. Those who entered as powerful men often left as obedient ones. The emperor collected secrets the way others collected gold. One night, Kasha was summoned inside. The chamber was small, lit by a single lamp. The emperor sat alone at a table, rolling a ring between his fingers. "Tell me," he said, without looking up, "what do you hear at night?" Kasha's heart raced. Truth meant danger. Lies meant death. "I hear only what I am ordered to hear, Caesar," she said. At last, he looked at her. His eyes were calm, almost kind. "Good," he replied. "Then you will last." In that moment, Kasha understood the real purpose of the palace. It was not to hide crimes from Rome. It was to teach fear so deep that silence became natural. And as long as Rome stayed silent, the nights would continue. Silence is not empty. It grows, spreads, and eventually begins to crack. Kasha felt the first fracture weeks later, though she did not yet know its shape. A new servant arrived, a young man named Julian, assigned to the outer corridors. Unlike others, he asked questions. Quiet ones, careful ones, but questions nonetheless. Kasha warned him once, her voice barely above breath. "The walls here," she said. Julian smiled sadly. "Then let them remember," he replied. It was dangerous thinking. It was also contagious. The Forbidden Palace nights grew more intense as unrest stirred beyond Rome's borders. Rebellions whispered through provinces. Grain shipments faltered. The emperor responded not with armies at first, but with knights. Governors were summoned. Generals invited. Deals were struck in rooms without witnesses. Men who entered defiant left obedient, their loyalty sealed by things they could never confess. Kasha watched them change. She learned to recognize the signs. The way hands shook. The way voices softened. The way proud men avoided mirrors. One night, a senator named Aurelius failed to leave the chamber alive. The palace did not announce his death. Rome was told he had fallen ill. His body was removed before dawn, wrapped and unmarked. Kasha saw the stain on the floor before it was scrubbed away. She felt something break inside her that never fully healed. Julian saw it too. "They can erase a man," he whispered later, "but not what he stood for." Kasha wanted to believe him. Fear had lived in her bones for too long. Yet something was changing. She noticed servants exchanging glances. Guards hesitating before closing doors. Silence was no longer smooth. It was brittle. The emperor sensed it. His calm sharpened. His smile faded. He began appearing more often at night, walking the corridors as if counting heartbeats. One evening, he stopped Kasha again. "You have been here long enough to understand Rome," he said. "Tell me, do you think fear lasts forever?" Kasha chose her words like stepping stones over deep water. "Fear lasts as long as it is fed," she answered. The emperor studied her. "And what feeds it?" "Silence," she said. For the first time, his expression hardened. That same night, Julian was taken into the inner wing. He did not return by morning. His name vanished from records before noon. Kasha felt the loss like a physical wound, but with it came something unexpected. Anger. She was not alone. Marcia, old and careful Marcia, pressed a small object into Kasha's hand days later. A signet ring, identical to the emperor's, used to seal private orders. "Some doors open only once," Marcia whispered. "When they do, walk through." The opportunity came during a night of storms. Thunder masked sound. Rain blurred torches. Kasha was ordered to deliver documents to the archive room, a place few entered and fewer left with memories intact. Inside were records of the nights. Names. Promises. Threats. Proof. Her hand shook as she hid a bundle of scrolls beneath her robe. By dawn, the city buzzed. Copies appeared where none should exist. Senators read their own secrets written in another's hand. Generals realized they were not alone in their shame. The silence shattered, not with screams, but with voices, hundreds of them, overlapping in outrage and fear. The emperor ordered arrests. Doors were sealed. But truth moves faster than guards. By the end of the week, Rome spoke openly of the Forbidden Palace nights. Not in detail, but enough. Enough to stain marble. Enough to crack statues. Cassia stood once more in the palace corridor as soldiers loyal to the Senate marched past. The emperor was taken quietly, without ceremony. No crowd cheered. No one dared. As he passed Cassia, his eyes met hers. There was no anger in them. Only understanding. Rome will replace me, he said softly. It always does. Cassia did not answer. The palace was closed soon after, its doors sealed, its chambers left to dust and memory. Rome moved on, as it always had. But something remained changed. People spoke more carefully now, and listened more closely. At night, when Cassia walked the streets as a free woman, she heard Rome breathe again. The city still had secrets. It always would. But it had learned that even the deepest silence could be broken. And that was a lesson no emperor could erase.